Hello, everybody. This is another episode of Sticky Notes Chat with me, Chris Noto. We've got Cory Lebson and Amanda Stockwell as well. And this week we are going to be talking about going solo. Are you a UX team of one? Are you working in an organization where you're the only person who does user experience? Um, yes, it can be lonely, but it doesn't have to be. There are things you can do to get the rest of your team to help you out and do your work for you, which is a great way of actually, if they can do some of the stuff which is more menial, it lets you do some of the more fun stuff that will actually keep you more engaged and enjoying your work. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's tell you a little bit about how you can get in touch with us. You can always tweet us at stickynotes.chat. Stickynoteschat. We are on email at chat@stickynotes.chat. Also, we have a website, stickynotes.chat, and this is going out on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So if you want to converse with us during the conversation, during this, which we love because we like your questions, then if you follow the hashtag Sticky Notes Chat, that will normally get you information about what we're up to. Also, follow each of us. That way, you'll get notifications when we go live. And if you're following along right now live, please say hi, say who you are and where you're from, and as we're going along, ask your questions on the topic of going solo, because we are going to be talking about that for the next, I don't know, however long we want to.
Forever.
Forever. So I've just done a whole bunch of intro spiel. I will say a lot of the time when I've been working in organizations, although there's been a lot of UX people and there's been that great support from the other UX people in the organization, I've often been the one person who's doing user research on a team, often though with the help of someone who's doing design work and someone who's doing user assistance work at the same time. I don't think I've ever been the one individual while I was doing work in those environments. But now, as a consultant, when I go in and work with teams, I'm often the only person doing UX. And the only way we can get this stuff done is to have the team learn how to do some of it and help me out. So, yeah, that's my experience with it. Cory, what about you? What have you been? What about your experience with being solo?
I mean, so I think my experience is actually similar to yours. Basically, early on, I kind of said, I have my swim lane. My swim lane is research.
Hmm.
I'm not going to do design. If you want me to do something light, sure, whatever. But I'm not a designer. If you want to do some light coding, yeah, I'll even do that. I might even do that too, but don't tell anyone. But really, my swim lane is I'm a researcher. I mean, that's my thing. So kind of if something was kind of we need a UX team of one, I would basically they'd look at me and say, you're a researcher, you don't belong here. I think that's still true today. Even as a consultant, where I'll go into a project and they will say, hey, you're doing the research. Can you do our wireframes, mock things up, do some interaction design, maybe some visual design. I'll say swim lane. So I mean, it's still the same. That said, certainly on the teams I work with, then there might be a UX team of one, who just needs some help with the research and such. So I'll come in, then you're no longer a team of one, I suppose, team of two. But largely, yeah, I like I said, I stick to my swim lane and kind of thus avoid the concerns of team of one.
Amanda, what about you?
Yeah, well, so as you probably know, being that I'm a consultant, that means I do a little bit of whatever. But one of the situations that I have frequently found myself in is that a company or organization might have gotten to the point where they recognize that they might need some research done, but don't have anybody there who knows how. So sometimes I am sort of placed in the team of one situation as a consultant because they might have they might have designers, although sort of similar to Cory, I don't do much design work and don't want to, and you shouldn't pay me to because that's not my strength. But so sometimes there's already, like design people at a company or marketing or product or engineering or whoever, but nobody doing research. So pretty often I end up being the team of one in that respect because I am the only one doing research. So I very quickly recruit team members and tell them that we're collaborating and that they don't have a choice. But I think the thing is, like, it totally depends on the situation. And sometimes I've seen orgs where there's a UX team of one who truly is like supposed to be the designer and a researcher and maybe also the coder and maybe also does marketing work. Like, that is a whole lot put on one person's plate. And so, that's a different situation, I think, than the situation that I'm typically in, which is maybe they have some established teams, but they don't necessarily have research, kind of set up and running, or they have a particular need that they don't have. And actually, my very kind of favorite way to engage with teams, well, that's not true. I have lots of favorite ways, but one of my favorite ways to engage with teams is when they already have a strong research practice, but there's something they just, don't have bandwidth for, and I can really like go in and work with another team of researchers who's already up and running, or work within the bounds of another team structure. But yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can end up feeling kind of solo. And I know, especially as a consultant, even if you are working with other people, sometimes you end up feeling kind of solo because you've been brought in as this consultant, you're this outside person, and sometimes it's just harder to get, and it has pros and cons, right, to have that outside perspective. But sometimes you just end up being a little bit on your own for things if you're not really careful about how you kind of craft your engagements.
I think, though, that there's some advantages to being, yes, you can feel like you're on your own and you're a team of one, and you can feel kind of lonely about that. There's some advantages coming in as a consultant because there's this expectation that you will be telling people what to do. So you can be
great at that.
Of course you're going to be helping me run a usability test. Of course we're going to be doing this exercise together. Of course you're going to be, helping me through the ideation process. And I mean, I'm saying this like I'm leveraging people for me in evil ends. But the thing is, if you can help the team to do this stuff, they turn into better. They can all do their job better if they understand who they're developing for and why. And if they've been involved in all these processes, that's the thing which is going to give them the insight so that when you as a consultant have gone and you're onto your next project, they can be like, oh, I remember what we saw when we did those user studies, and I was taking notes for those, so I remember them well, rather than just eating the pizza that was available or the cookies that were available. And so then they can say, okay, because this new situation's turned up, I wonder what Chris would do. Oh, I don't need to wonder that because I saw all that stuff and I can make better decisions, more informed decisions, because I got more data about what my users were up to at that point. So definitely getting those people involved helps them as well as helping us. It's not just for our own nefarious ends. It's actually got some benefits.
Well,
yeah, go on, Cory.
As we're talking, I'm thinking, when we originally started, we're thinking of UX team of one as, every kind of UX, the design, the research, whatever. But then, when we're talking about consulting and you're a UX team of one because you're the consultant, or we're talking about research and you're in work in a company and you're a UX team of one as a researcher, and maybe there's a design staff too, maybe not. But the team of one, and also like the loneliness part of it, I think in all those contexts is still true. And it's not coincidental that I went freelance in 2008 and I started getting involved in UXPA in 2008. It was like,
I need my peeps.
I need my people. I need other UXers, and for me, getting involved in UXPA back then, and then becoming very involved, through a big first part of my UX independent career, it was basically saying I need to be surrounded by UX people, and I'm not anymore. How do I compensate? So, but certainly, yeah. I mean, the professional loneliness, I think, is certainly in all those contexts a concern.
So it sounds like that's a point then to make to people is, if you're feeling lonely, if you feel like you are a team of one, look outside your organization for the support and just mental well-being. At least if nothing else, to find out that everybody else is suffering the same problem you are. Right?
For sure. And I think one of the things that I always like to encourage people to do, no matter where they are in their career, is to be connected with other people in the UX space for, sort of the more obvious, tangible career advancement reasons. Like you might, very often people get jobs through people they know rather than, through job boards or whatever. But more importantly, having other people's experience to learn from, whether you're, as I said, like just kind of starting out and you want to learn from other people who are more experienced, or even if you are really experienced, at least having other people to just like bounce ideas off of, no matter what, is great. And so I always tell people, like, especially in UX, like it's meant to be a team sport. It's meant to have more heads, more brains, more powers than just one person. And it doesn't matter how skilled you are, how experienced you are. And especially a lot of the problems that we work on, or a lot of the things we're looking to solve, are tricky and complex. And it's just helpful to have, other people looking at the same thing as you, and other people. And sometimes that's as simple as, the three of us get together before we do this live stream. We're all sort of independently complaining about things that we're dealing with.
Life, consultant, LinkedIn.
Yeah. But so some of it is just sort of like good to know you're not alone. Some of it is
absolutely.
a good gut check of like, okay, is there a simple solution to this that I haven't thought of, or another tool that I haven't tried, or all right, well, we're all bothered by this, but at least we're all together. So I always super encourage people, regardless of what your work situation looks like, whether you're, independent or at an agency, or even if you're at a huge team with lots of people, I really recommend sort of getting involved with the community. And even if you're not someone who likes to network, even if you're not someone who likes, who doesn't want a public speak or that kind of thing, there's totally ways that you can get involved. There's tons of Slack groups available for all kinds of different parts of UX. There's local events, there's book clubs, there's all kinds of different stuff you can do to be involved, even if you're not trying to, even if you don't have any ideas to
even if you just look, and it's still like, oh, look, there are other people who have the same issues that I have. Oh, look, there are other people who are kind of coming up with solutions to some of these issues. Or, oh, look, there are no solutions. Oh, yeah, life sucks, but still we're doing it. Yeah. And I just recorded a course for LinkedIn, which is coming out soon on getting to the point of finding a job and building your reputation before you do that. And definitely contributions in that kind of environment are the kind of thing which help you build a real reputation, not the sort of pseudo brand thing, but people will start saying, oh, that person, yeah, I've seen their posts and they make interesting points, or they're very supportive, or whatever else it is. You don't have to necessarily have all the answers, but just sharing or asking sensible questions can be enough to help build your reputation as somebody who's worth having a conversation with. So yeah, I mean, it's good in more than one way. It's great for you, for your kind of sense of well-being as this team of one individual, but it's also good for you if you're looking to actually build your kind of reputation within the industry as well. So that's the self-help side of things. It's like, how do you stay sane as a team of one? What about this whole idea of not necessarily having to be a team of one, but getting the rest of the rest of the people on your team to help you do your job? I think as consultants, again, we kind of find this slightly easier because there's this expectation when we go in that we will be typically asking people to do stuff for us. Now, to different degrees, right? Because sometimes if we're going in to do a specific piece of work, like we'd like you to run this user study, there's almost this expectation that you'll come in, you'll do it, you'll deliver a report, and you'll leave. But if you're doing stuff which is more along the lines of helping a team through a design problem or something like that, there's an expectation that there'll be different parts of work. There'll user research, some ideation work, that kind of stuff. Of course, the team's going to need to be involved with that kind of thing. And if you're working on a product team and you're going through the whole product lifecycle with them, then there's obviously these steps in the process where maybe you could do them on your own, but it's not necessarily going to help the rest of the team if you do. And it's not necessarily going to get them embracing the concepts that you come up with. And I say this for design UX people who are doing design work as well. Often I think it's more likely you'll be a team of one as a designer than as a researcher, because typically an organization will decide they need a designer more than they decide they need a researcher. So if you're coming into this from a design perspective, sure, yeah, you can go and just do all the design work on your own and give it to the team and say, build this. Is that going to work? Not necessarily.
Yeah, I'd add, even as a researcher, I definitely try to, and in my case, obviously clients, but it could be in-house as well. Basically, involve the development team, involve the management team. Basically, okay, we're going to have a workshop talking about the screener. We're going to have, look at not like a days and days, like 2 hours. We're gonna have a workshop to develop the test plan. We'll look at the site together. We'll kind of like figure out what are common expected tasks people will do. We'll work through this all. And they're not researchers. They're the ones who would say, hire me to do the research. But by kind of doing that workshop, by asking them to spend the time, they also get much more engaged in the US.
It's their questions all of a sudden, isn't it? It's like all of a sudden it's become the things they care about that you're going to be doing in the research. It's like, oh, I want the answer to that.
Yes.
You might have to help them make those questions measurable, and you might have to help them actually decide what's a good what constitutes success and what constitutes failure. But
Exactly.
I always do this thing where, and it's it's not lip service, is true, but whenever I start somewhere, I say, all right, listen, way more about this organization, this industry, whatever it is we're working on. I'm really good at research, but you're really good at whatever it is they do, right? And I say, I will bring my expertise and we will get this together, but I really need your help understanding this piece, or, knowing what the goals are, knowing what the assumptions are, whatever it is. I really just kind of appeal to people by saying, like, your information will help me do a better job, right? And very rarely do people dislike hearing that their knowledge is important. Very rarely are people like, no, I have nothing valuable to add. I'll just stay over here. And so it's not disingenuous, but it is a tactic that I use, because a lot of times I hear people, especially who are on the sort of team of one where there's one UX person for an entire organization. Very often I hear them say things like, well, the developers are supposed to be doing dev work, and I'm supposed to be taking things off their plate, not adding meetings to them. So I always kind of phrase it that way. And I don't always make it like an official workshop. I might be like, hey, do you have 15 minutes? Can you look at this thing? And I will say, one of the things that I think is positive about the pandemic era that we're living in is that everybody's getting used to remote collaboration tools and sort of asynchronous work, even if they're planning to go back to their office or whatever. Everybody's gotten used to, hey, I put this thing up, can you look at it and leave some comments, or that kind of thing, which I've been doing for a long time. Some of the teams I've worked with have done that for a long time, but certainly not across the board. And I think that this has been one of those things that it's kind of forced people to be like, okay, we can collaborate even if we can't sit down together. And I still prefer to have it live, but I think that I'll take comments to a doc and a little bit of collaboration that way than nothing, which is what sometimes people were getting before.
So the getting the team to do this stuff for you asynchronously is kind of Cory was saying, let's get everybody in a workshop and let's get the answers out. And Amanda, you're saying, well, we could do it asynchronously. Here's a document, you can add your comments to it.
It depends what it is too,
right?
Like, for instance, if you're going to be like coming up with new concept ideas, it's pretty hard to do asynchronously. But if you just need if you need some help refining the screener, or if you've already had an in-person session and you need some help like refining the discussion guide, those are, it also depends who you're asking help from and how much they know about what you're asking for. So, for instance, if I am working with a team I've worked with lots before and they kind of know my style and we're doing a similar but different project than we've done before, I might feel more comfortable doing the asynchronous kind of thing than the more curated, in-person moderated.
You mean if you've trained them well, right? Basically.
Yes, basically.
I mean, but thinking back, to the life before Slack, before kind of instant chat of any kind.
There was life before Slack.
I mean, the asynchronous meant I will send you an email.
Yes.
You will track changes and send me an email back. It was super clunky. The fact that I mean, it's not even just this year, but the fact that there are these tools, that businesses have adopted these tools, makes the asynchronous in our hierarchy of collaboration from the in-person, like a whiteboard we have together. Then we've got the remote real time. Then we've got the asynchronous, but Slack. Then we have going back in time where it was asynchronous and email and track changes, whatever. Yeah. I mean, there's a spectrum of collaborative. How can I work with people and tipping even now, towards the higher end, the richer end of collaboration.
And it has to be easy for the rest of the team. There's the last thing you want to do is be an overhead on everybody else. You want to be somebody who's helping them do their jobs, not hindering them from doing their jobs. I mean, this is something that Omar is saying. I'm going to put this up on the screen. There are always other roles that help you, but it's very difficult with so little time. So you have to create your process compass. Yeah, if you don't get your processes sorted out. This goes back to what Amanda was saying as well about training the team. If you are working with a team and you're a member of that team, then helping them understand how you do your work and what their part of that work is will really streamline things in the future. So that you can say, okay, we're doing another usability test. So that means we need these things, and then the team, it can become asynchronous at that point because the team knows what's required of them and when, and they know what things they have to turn up for and be a part of in person, and they know what things they don't have to. But they have to see value in what you're producing. So the deliverables at the other end of the process, that's the input, but the output from the process has to be something which the team sees value in. And again, that's something which you have to include them in finding out, well, what is it they need? There's no point doing all your user research or all your design work if it doesn't actually support the rest of the team in the jobs that they're trying to do. If your research doesn't tell the people, the product managers, what it is that needs to change or needs to be built next, if your ideation sessions don't actually come up with ideas which are implementable, if your research work doesn't actually give people information that helps them with solving the problems that they think they have with the product right now, it's not going to help. Or if it's not produced in a way that shows them how to solve those problems. So yeah, how do you go about doing that?
Well, I think one of the things is it depends on, to your point, a huge amount of this depends on the goal of the research that you're doing. And
you just did it. You just did the it depends.
It always depends, Chris. Come on. I couldn't get through a chat without saying that. But it's true because some things it's much more straightforward, right? Like if I'm doing a simple evaluation, like a usability test of a prototype, for one, it can be really clear how other people can get involved. You can say, okay, like team member A, like, can you take notes for me? Team member B, can you help gather the questions from the other observers while I'm moderating? Other team members, if you want to take notes, here's the way to do that, right? Like you can be really specific about it. And on the other end, to your point, one of my favorite things to do, actually, especially after like a usability test or lots of things, but to do like a debrief afterwards and to on top of that, rather than relying on creating some documents, some deliverable to tell people what happened, I like to call it kind of like learning together. So what did we all see from this? And then there's way less convincing, like, yes, for real, they were confused. You saw them grimace, right? If you sat there and watched it, but also coming up with the solutions together. So if you take and have 5 usability sessions and then take an hour to do a debrief of like, here's what we saw, here's what we should do about it. It's one of those things where if everybody has a little say in what they, describing what they saw and a little say in what the next solution should be, well, then everybody can kind of see their idea follow through and trickle
Right.
through. And then you don't have to convince them of anything. They're like, oh, yeah, that was my idea. I think that we should totally do that. We totally need to change that. And that's my favorite way to go about it, because then you're not, and it's again, like I'm joking about it a little bit, but it's not just,
No,
it's not
so
disingenuous. It's
Yeah.
true. Like if everybody can see where the idea came from, and everybody has sort of a part to play in identifying what, like I said, especially with like evaluation, what the issues were and then what potential solutions are, that's way more effective than you going off and doing research on your own by yourself and then coming back and handing somebody a lengthy document that tells them all the ways the things that they built are terrible, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's just as general, like a general best practice, we can kind of derive one is get whoever engaged. So if you're a team of one, I mean, truth is, if you're a team of 20, it doesn't matter. If you can engage people who are outside your team, that engagement translates into value add. Now, look at some of the comments. Do we have time for these with all the meetings? And the question, really is, how do you get people to even come to the meetings? How do you convince them? Yes, you're going to add value. So they have to feel like they're adding value. They have to feel like they're going to add value. They have to get there and feel like they've added value, like it was a good reason they're there. And then when we get to the end of the process, whatever that UX process may be, they have to feel like, okay, I've been a part of this, therefore I will accept the result, whatever, and whether it's research or design or whatever, I accept it because I've been engaged, or they know they've contributed, therefore they've added value, therefore they'll accept what you get.
And let's face it, everybody on the team is going away with their own interpretation of a user session afterwards. They're going to go off and make the fixes anyway. It's nice if you can be the person who kind of brings it all together into a coherent whole, so that they'll go make the same fixes.
True.
Rather than doing crazy stuff. Definitely the whole idea of getting this engagement from the team, I guess that is, like you said, Cory, that's one of the key takeaways. It's this thing that if you can have the team engaged in the user-centered design process that you're kind of espousing, then all of a sudden they are doing your work for you, but they're doing it because they want to, not because they have to. The engagement, the more they get engaged, the more they see the benefits, the more they want to do the rest of this. I think that's one of the key points is if you're telling people they have to, that's probably not going to work. If you're getting people wanting to, like, when are we running the next usability test? When can I see the result? When can I see whether these changes we put in are actually making the impact we wanted them to make? That's when you've kind of succeeded as a team of one, and you've turned your team of one into being just part of the whole team and turned your processes into the team's processes.
One of the ways that I kind of combat that initial like getting people interested in rather than just telling them to show up is helping people connect the value regardless of what their job is of what I'm doing, right? So like if you're a product manager, then I say, well, here are the things that we are looking to learn, and these are the decisions I can help you make. Here's the information that you'll get that will help you. Or if you're talking to engineers, you can be like, well, here's the information I'm going to gather about this that could save you some time. And so if you can try to early on, sort of connect the value, especially when you talk about doing those things like the learning together and the coming up with solutions together. One of the ways that I used to sort of successfully rope engineers that I didn't know that well into sessions is to say, well, if you come to one of these sessions and then you come to the debrief, then like in the debrief, we'll start talking about solutions and you can right away tell me if something isn't technically feasible. Mm-hmm. I might have already known the answer, but having them there, well, again, it sort of appealed to their, like, I need your knowledge in this thing. And it really actually did speed things up because and in that specific instance I'm thinking of, we were working in sort of an agile environment. So I was writing reports to document what we had done, but they were like 3 pages, just enough to kind of, serve enough to revive our memories and serve as posterity. But by the time I'd finished writing the report, we probably were already implementing changes.
Reports aren't where the action is, are they? Reports are just this kind of archival document, which you may go back to at some point, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, and some teams use them more than others, and it depends a lot. But
I've had teams take every single finding. When I do these reports for clients, I tend to do severity ratings for stuff too, and I've had them take every single finding and just enter them into their bug database and then just pound through them. And I'm like, okay,
all right,
good, yeah,
okay, great,
yeah.
But it makes me think back. Sometimes it's not even the research. I remember one organization I came into as a researcher, and they had this distributed authoring environment where they had maybe 30 offices across the United States, and each one had a couple of content contributors, and they would all contribute to the CMS and whatever. And I was hired to do the research. And it was getting ridiculous because every time I research something new, and I'd say, oh, well, yeah, they made these same mistakes over again. So started doing these training classes, which weren't related to any project or any particular study, but was basically geared at content contributors. How do I create, content for good UX? How do if I insert images, how do I do those? And did those workshops, in a number of their offices. And then, wow, the usability studies got easier because it basically there's a level of of being an advocate and an evangelist for UX, even in my role in that case as a researcher, where I wasn't doing research, but just really advocating and doing training, and it helped.
And it's funny because I think that's also another way of getting yourself accepted on the broader team is to be seen doing other stuff than just that one user research thing and just being the person who tells them what's wrong all the time, right? Because all of a sudden when you're doing that training, you were helping people do things better. Now, as far as you were concerned, I'm sure you were still saying, this is why you should do it because it helps users with this situation. And we found that from this research. But as far as they're concerned, it's like, oh, now I can do my job better and actually have my content accepted better by people. So I love you, Cory.
Yeah, pretty much nobody is mad at you if you give them tips to succeed or if you make them look good. No one's like, oh, stop making me look good.
And that's the thing, right? Making people look good. If you can make the rest of the team look good, if you can make the product managers look good because you've given them research which supports what they're doing, if you can make marketing look good because you've helped them you've helped them not have to run a whole ton of surveys because you found the results through user research, and now they can do the next survey they would have done otherwise with some of those results. All those things, making the rest of the team look good, making the developers look good because they saved a whole bunch of time not coding something that they were otherwise going to have to code, making the whole team look good because the product's successful. Those things are what make the team want to have you around and want to include you in conversations and want you in meetings and want to come and watch user sessions and want you helping them through the next iteration of the product.
Totally. And I think one thing also to sort of keep in mind that if you're in a solo situation is that someone doesn't have to have UX skills to help you with UX stuff. Like, almost certainly they don't. Because I think that's something I hear sometimes too, is people are like, yeah, well, I can make them look good, but like, how can I teach them to take notes, or how can I, teach them to design stuff? I'm like, well, you don't have to. You can just ask them for their expertise or ask them to contribute in the ways that you know how. Like, an example is I was once coaching someone who was in sort of a solo situation, and he was like, well, how do I get the developers to come to my design jams and like actually have design ideas? They can't draw. And I was like, well, they don't have to draw. You can draw. You just have to get them talking. But I think that's something that sometimes people get stuck on, right? They're like, well, I'm the only one with the skill set. I'm the only one who can do it. And that's so totally not true. And you might still be sort of the eventual owner of it, or sort of the shepherd of it, but it does not mean you need to be the one to do it. And this might start another debate, but I'm totally of the mind of like, even if they don't do the best job, like, all right, let a product manager sketch to get their ideas out. You can still refine things and own things, or, okay, like,
it's going to happen whether you're there or not. Somebody's going to design an interface whether you're there or not. So obviously they can. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me also, as we're talking about that, when Amanda, you're saying that you came in and you coached, is that for a team of one, you can get a coach, you can get a assistant, you can get support without actually I mean, maybe you don't have the control to hire someone, but you say, hey, for this month, we might need some extra design skills on staff, and there's tons of freelancers out there, who would love to jump in and help. And if you're not that experienced, or you need help in one particular area, you find a freelancer for a month, just at least to learn the ropes of whatever it is, maybe a certain software package, maybe a certain skill, and they can help kind of increase and enhance what you as the team of one maybe can offer, both in the immediate term, but also kind of learning the ropes later on.
So that's not just using a freelancer to take on workload. That's using a freelancer to help improve your skill set too.
Yeah. This is sort of a weird just thing that I have noticed. I don't know how. I don't have much data about this, sort of anecdotal, but I have noticed because a couple of times that I have been in that sort of coaching situation, the person was told, or the people I was working with were told that they didn't have budget to hire another UX person, but they had this sort of interesting bucket of money under professional development. That wasn't enough for that to actually send them to a conference. Not that you can do a lot of that these days, but but they could use that professional development budget to hire someone to do some training, or to help them establish some processes. So there were some interesting ways, and again, small set of data, but if you're in that position and you're yeah, I would love that, but I can't hire a freelancer. Check out your professional development budget if there is one, or see if you can get something connected to a specific project or something, or from another group. So I have previously also, I know that I was hired and funded by, say, the support team, even though I was actually helping the product team. So there are ways to be creative about it. I know that this is not maybe the world's best time to be advocating for most organizations to spend more money. But there are certainly ways to be creative. And I am always very much an advocate of spending money smartly. And I think Cory had a totally good point that sometimes you don't need to necessarily hire another person, or maybe you would like to do that, but maybe you hire somebody for a month and they can help you set up some processes, or they can help train some people. And, I actually do this a lot. I joke that I train myself out of a job because I teach people how to do research. And then I start by doing work with them, and then I teach them how to do it. And then eventually they don't need me anymore because now they have a team of people who know how.
And that's the fun side of it as well. Because you're joking about training yourself out of a job, but you're actually training yourself out of the mundane parts of the job that you don't necessarily want to be doing all the time.
Yeah, I love the training part. I'd be happy to keep going there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and as talking about this year and whether those training budgets are available and such, I've actually been wondering whether certain industries aside that have been kind of clobbered by kind of the current situation. I'm wondering actually if UX sometimes isn't as hurt as other things, because companies are like, oh my gosh, I got to make those web properties more efficient. I'll do anything, if you want to train to get better, we've got to get better. We've got to get our online presence better. So yeah. And I'm wondering more generally, actually, if in some ways it's, there's some good things for being a UX professional right now.
There's always good things for being a UX professional.
I think there's a level of desperation on a corporate level of, we've got to get better. We've got to improve because this is, virtual is all we have now.
Now is not a good time to not have a good online presence or be a good digital presence. Yeah, now's not a good time to.
Yeah. So to respect with those, those learning budgets, it might be you got to get better. So, okay, do it,
Mm-hmm. And back to the point on process as well, one of the things I found is that by having to engage the team, it's made me better at my processes too. Whereas I might not have written a full-on test plan beforehand, or if I might not have had good ways of taking notes during a session. If I've got the rest of the team being part of this, then I have to kind of write out for the team, okay, this is the task that we're going to be doing. This is what we expect to see. What did you see? So when they're observing, they can actually take notes in a way that makes sense to them, but also gives me good information afterwards. Or maybe creating a table of task, expected result, actual result, those kind of things, and having it so that they can actually write in what they saw, so that they can see for themselves, but also then collect data for me as part of the process.
Yep.
So doing this and making the team involved makes me be more cognizant of my process. So it's something that you definitely have to think about from the team's perspective. And again, as a user experience person, you should be able to do this. What does the team need from me in order to be good contributors to all this stuff? And again, this is an area where you might not actually be able to get so much training. You might need to more just think through, well, what is it that I can do to help the team out? But then on the tools side of the process, if there's something you need to know to make your job better, yeah, go ask. There's almost always budget for something. Even when people say, no, there's a hiring freeze, no, there's no money for training, there's almost always budget for something. Maybe you're buying something from a vendor who also offers training as part of the package. So you just throw an extra couple of $100 there, you get the training for that stuff as part of the package. So yeah, there's all sorts of ways of getting yourself up to speed with things that you don't necessarily have the understanding of right now. As long as you feel confident that you're the kind of person who can learn those things and participate.
Before I forget, also, I want to kind of put it on the record that if you are in a position where you are feeling like a team of one, it's totally fine that you don't know everything. Nobody does. Because I just wanted to kind of remind and put that on the record, because I've sometimes heard from people, especially people who are maybe a little newer to UX, or especially if they were the sort of person who maybe came from a different field and there was no UX at their organization and they turned their job into UX, but so it's new both to them and to their organization. And they're like, but I don't know how to do, this great interaction design and all of the research and all this other stuff. And I'm like, that's normal. It's fine. That's a lot. It's a really broad skill set and it's a lot of things to know. So I just wanted to, before I forgot to say that, just to kind
of. In
of
fact, I think that's super important, because the other thing you can do as well, it's okay to admit to the team that you don't know.
Well,
yeah. It's like,
exactly.
Hey guys, I want to do this new kind of user research. We've done these kind of lab studies. They're remote at the moment, obviously, but we've done this thing where people go through and talk and tell us what they're doing as they go along. But I want to try this other thing. I've never done it before. I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you ask somebody for their help, they're like, I can help you with that.
Yeah. Well, and also, I think this is a little bit, mushier, but if you're.
Do we lose you?
Oh no, Amanda, you've gone away. I wanted to know what she was going to say.
No, I just waiting for the point.
If you're ... Oh, you're back. No.
Oh no.
Yes. We lost you.
I'm back. I don't know where I cut off. I know.
You cut off
I don't know where.
If you're... And we missed your whole last statement. So.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say, if you're vulnerable with people about what you're not as confident about or where you are lacking in skills, one, they're a lot more likely to give you grace if something doesn't go well. And two, then they're a lot more likely to trust you with their own things that they're like, maybe I don't really know the answer to this, but we'll figure it out together. And it's sort of an exercise in building trust and team relationship rather than, because I think sometimes, especially people when they are the only UX person or only whatever person, they feel like they need to know everything.
Yeah.
And people will ask you for everything, but that doesn't mean that you're somehow a terrible failure because you don't have everything memorized. So, I just wanted to make sure I got that out.
I'd even throw in there, even I do that as well. Like there's times when a potential client or whatever would say, or an existing client would say, hey, we need you to do the research you've been doing, but also X. And I say, well, I'm not really experienced in X. I mean, I'm happy to help you. I'm certainly happy to help you in whatever way I can. But I want you to know what skills I have and what skills I don't have. And then you can decide if you want me to help or not based on that, or based on who else is available, or if anybody else is available.
And one of the things I found as user researchers is we're used to saying, I can't tell you the answer, but I've got a toolkit that will help you find the answer. We can do research to find that out. So if you can then extend that into well, I'm not sure that I have the skills to do that yet, but I'm happy to go and do them with you, then that's probably a way of like you say, Amanda, getting grace from people. It's like people will then give you more slack if it doesn't quite turn out right. Plus, they're more likely to get involved and engaged and try and come up with a solution together, which is such an awesome thing. That's what teams are all about, right? And it actually, one of the things I found is, as a user researcher, often you can kind of feel like you're on the outside of a team looking in. But when you actually get the team engaged in this way, it's a way of really feeling like you are part of that group. And that's a lovely feeling as a user researcher, is feeling, oh, I am part of this team. I'm helping contribute to the success of this team, and they appreciate me for doing what I do. Yeah. Any parting thoughts from you two on being a UX team of one?
I think we've covered all the good stuff. Get support when you need it. Learn what you need to know. Reach out, engage teams. Let people feel valuable across the board, and then ultimately, your team of one becomes a team of one with many supporting. And
what a nice parting thought. Your team of one becomes a team with many supporting parts. Oh.
I'm not sure I can top that.
Well, you don't have to. We can just let Cory do his mic drop, and then we'll just. So, okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this session. I hope you've enjoyed it. We definitely always enjoy being here and chatting. Just so you know, this is about the only time that we all chat together. So, and for me, every time I learn new stuff from this little team of people that we're doing this with. So it's always fun for us. Well, it's fun for me. I'm making assumptions about Cory and Amanda. They may hate being here, but I don't think so.
Yeah, for sure.
And we will be back next week as well. Next week, we're going to be talking about constraints. This topic came from a conversation that we were having between the three of us, which is often you'll see people doing a little design challenge for themselves to redesign something on a popular site, or you'll see people complaining about the way sites have created a certain piece of interaction design. And the thing is, we all think we can design better interfaces for sites, but when it comes down to it, and I've seen this as a consultant going into organizations, there's often reasons why things are the way they are. And we will dive into many of those reasons and try and work out what you can do to get around some of the otherwise insurmountable seeming problems if you're one of the people inside the company that has the problems or has those reasons. And we'll be talking about all of that next week. So please join us then. We do these at Thursdays, 10 Pacific, 1 Eastern time. We did take a couple of weeks off the last couple of weeks, but that's because we were all busy and we also need some rest time ourselves every now and again. If you want to get in touch, I guess, maybe. If you want to get in touch with us, Twitter at Stickynotes Chat. You can email us chat@stickynotes.chat, and that's also our website address, stickynotes.chat, which is where you'll find archived versions of all the old content. You can also find it on LinkedIn, and you can find it on YouTube as well. We are all on LinkedIn, and that's obviously where the notification goes out for these things when they go live. If you follow the hashtag #StickyNotesChat, and if you follow each of us, you will get notifications when we go live. Because the platform is still new, they don't really have a good way of us being able to tell you in advance what the URL is for these things. That sucks. Oh, wait, what were we talking about? Constraints. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to deal with them.
Yeah, I got to deal with it. So, yes, it sucks, but it's one of those constraints, and it's something they're working on. So we will, in the future, be able to give you URLs. But until then, you have to follow each of us. And the reason you have to follow all of us is because we alternate whose feed this goes out on each time. So if you follow all of us, then you will be sure to find out to be notified when we go live. So for this week, from me, Chris Notter, from Cory Lebson, and from Amanda Stockwell, thank you so much, and we will be back with you soon.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.